was the fair tax. What do you think about the fair tax?
The question about the fair tax, which is really developing interesting momentum. They had a meeting in Charlotte, North Carolina last week with over 7,000 people. I think the fair tax is an interesting idea. I'm not yet convinced that it's a doable idea. This essentially is a consumption tax. The easiest way to think of it is you eliminate all tax on income, you put the tax on consumption, you eliminate the ability of theoretically, of the underground economy to avoid paying taxes. You increase take-home pay, but then you pay more at the store when you buy things. I have two concerns about this, and Neil Borge told me Friday, I did his radio show, and he told me that he and John Linder are working on a new book designed to answer every problem that Jim DeMint got into. Because when DeMint used the fair tax in the Senate race, it got to be a very contentious fight, and the Democrat was able to pick it apart in ways that were, DeMint came pretty close to losing the race at one point. And they think they've now analyzed and they can answer every attack. There are two big challenges. One is you would have to repeal the amendment that permits the income tax, because you could, I would never give Congress a massive consumption tax and the income tax. They'll use both. So that's the first big challenge. The second is a question of intellectual honesty, and I want to see Neil's new book before I really go at him on this. It is not correct to say that there's not an enforcement mechanism. What you do is you shift the IRS from auditing individuals on the income side to auditing businesses on the sales side. But you still have to have a revenue service of some kind, because you're now going to create an enormous incentive to cheat on the consumption tax. I mean, if you get into the size of the consumption tax, even if it's only, say, 16% or 15%, that is a lot of money. And you start taking that on a house, or you take that on a car, the temptation to not quite remember to pay it could be quite big. So I think it'd be more accurate to say it is a different mechanism. I happen to favor the way it would shift things. I think the other thing, by the way, is they have a fairly complex redistribution pattern of sending out checks. So it's fairly complicated by the time they're done with it. I personally think one way you can do this, you get the same effect, is stabilize the cost of government so that as the economy gets bigger, the government gets to be smaller as a share of the economy, and just keep cutting taxes. And if you eliminate the capital gains tax totally, and you eliminate any tax on savings, and then you eliminate the death tax, you presently, for the average person, start dramatically simplifying the tax code, unless they want to do complicated things. Yes, sir?
It would be unfair to people with the Roth IRA to have consumption tax.
The question is, it would be unfair to people with the Roth IRA to have a consumption tax. It would be, but if you read the fair tax material, they would actually have a transfer of, they would have money that's rebated in effect, for example, for senior citizens and for the very poor. So you'd have someone. But you're right. And anytime you make a huge transition, there are winners and losers, and you got to think it through very carefully. Yes, ma'am.